Hey there, Impact Zone! We're back here at the podcast to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And this one's a bit different. I don't normally read articles and things like that. Sometimes I reference and read articles, but today we're mostly going to be referencing and reading through an article. It was basically an interview with WWE wrestler Bayley. Basically, the sum notes of this were her saying, "Hey, I'm open to doing business in WWE's partner promotions, TNA and AAA." She said some very nice things about TNA, and I want to go through them and have a discussion about, what Bayley could do in TNA, and we might have talked slightly about Bayley in TNA. Maybe I think we actually talked about Becky Lynch in coming to TNA possibly at some point. But yeah, like this, I can't. Where was this interview? She also said she wanted to wrestle in Noah. Where was? Oh, this was on Busted Open Radio rather. Ugh. So I'm gonna read just a quote here from Bayley, saying, "I would love to dip my toes into TNA and AAA, all these things. If we have the doors to do that, I would love to go. TNA was one of my dreams as a kid. I loved the Knockouts division. They were the hottest division for so long. Gail Kim is one of my favorites. I did a tryout for TNA years ago, like 2010 or something. The Knockouts has always been a dream." So I'm not going to really read a whole lot else from this. I don't even think there's that much here to actually read out, but I'm not going to read much more out of this because I don't think there's that much to say. Um, you know, I think it's sort of interesting or whatever to read. There's not much to here that really says a whole lot more. I'm just reading through some of it as I'm speaking. But she said she'd like to do some stuff outside of WWE. And of course, back a I guess it was over a year ago now, back a little bit back when Naomi was in TNA, or what was her name in TNA? Was it Naomi? It wasn't Naomi, was it? She didn't go by her like real name, did she? Oh no, she went by her real name, Trinity. I was thinking like her real name is something to do with the Anawahi family and that, but that's her married name or whatever. Though technically, I suppose that's technically her real name or whatever now, but whatever. Um, whatever. But yeah, Bayley was like there at a lot of the events. So was Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, at a lot of the Bayley matches. Not all of them, I think. I think Mercedes was at like more of the major ones, and Bayley was there for most of the like pay-per-views, I think. So yeah, Bayley technically kind of I think I might have mentioned that I think somewhere at some point I think she said this on Twitter at some point about like going to TNA at some point like ages ago, but like this was a recent or more recent interview, I believe. So yeah, it was only like a couple of days ago or whatever. Um Anyway, yeah, but she said a while back that she might have wanted to go to TNA years ago, and I think I tweeted back at her, like because she said something about being in the Knockouts division or training to go through Tough Enough, or not Tough Enough, but or is it, what is it called? The Tough Enough thing that they do, whatever it's called. I think it's called Tough Enough anyway. But anyway, she said she went through that and was doing that. She couldn't remember when. I think I tweeted at her at some point saying, "Hey, this was when it was," or whatever it was, because like it was recorded somewhere, and I found the thing of it. I think she had like one match, and I don't think it was televised. I think it was like, maybe it was like on Explosion. I don't know. But anyway, I think she had like one random match that got shown somewhere, or maybe one random appearance that got shown somewhere in TNA doing the trials, the Tough Enough trials, or whatever you call them. At least at some point. But yeah, I think that was pretty cool because it was like she was almost there. She was on the indie scene for a while. I don't know really why TNA didn't come knocking or whatever, but it is what it is. Well, they sort of came knocking, but they didn't really come knocking. They didn't come knocking, hard enough, I suppose, or whatever. But still, thinking about like if she could come over, what could she do? Like, here's what I think. She could only I would say she couldn't do like a 3 or 4 month run even. I would say at most she would be there for a month, maybe. That would be if we were lucky, like very fairly lucky. I would say that she'd be there maybe for one match, maybe like one major match, I would say. Like, I wouldn't think, or maybe even just like a random like match, like not even that major of a match, but I would think that would be all she would get to do. I also think maybe she's sort of, signaling to WWE kind of thing. And I don't want to put words in her mouth or whatever else it is, because she could be just being nice or whatever and being like, oh yeah, if they send me over there to do stuff, I'll do stuff. And I'm putting it out there into the universe to say, hey, why don't you send me over there to do stuff or whatever? Because, hey, you're not really doing anything with me here, and you don't really give a shit about me anyway, so send me off to do something. I'll do it. I'll work over in AAA, I'll work over in Noah, I'll work with TNA, whatever. That way I'll get, a main event for once, or whatever, I'll actually be somewhat respected, whereas you guys only really care about Charlotte or whatever, and that sort of thing. You don't care about me, but whatever. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but maybe that's part of it, where it's like, oh man, I could go to TNA and I could do all this stuff. So maybe she's signaling to them to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe you should do something with me, and then make me happy, and it'll be good for business or whatever. If not, hey, well, maybe I'll just go and sign with TNA or whatever and be over there. And, well, you guys won't care anyway, because you don't give a shit about me. But anyway, I think that could be her trying to be like working the deal a little bit to an extent. And this is something that you see a lot of wrestlers do. Jericho is absolute master at it. That's why people are still speculating, when is Jericho going to WWE or whatever. And he said, hey, I'd like to do stuff in TNA and whatever else, because he was like, hey, well, if everyone kind of wants me and everyone's kind of bidding for me, that only helps me. That only helps me get a bigger and better deal. If WWE is like, well, we don't really want him, we don't really care that much, but realistically, we don't want him to really go to TNA. We don't actually want them to do anything. We just kind of want them to be our little proxy on the side or whatever. And that's what we want them to do. We want them just to be there, and we want them to be managed, and we want them to be like at a certain level, and that's it. We don't want them to actually really have like a huge buzz and huge success. We don't want another AEW. We want just another company that we can work with and we can farm talent from, and whatever. It doesn't, like, we've seen most of their talent. Yeah, we're not really that interested in maybe anyone else. Like, actually, though, they did say hey, or I think they didn't say hey, but they said, or they think they just released that the Hardy brothers would be in the new WWE game. So
Well, they're obviously going to WWE at some point. Like they're WWE bound at some point, which is yet more reason, in my opinion, to say, hey, let's wrap them up. Let's figure out a way for them to go out and put not just one or two people over, but at least a few people over, because everyone on that roster has worked really hard to get, not just to get them to where they are today, but, because they got themselves there in some ways, absolutely. But certainly they keeping them there and keeping them looking good, even that is a tough effort when they're as haggard as what they are. But still. Okay, anyway. Bayley in TNA, what could she do? I'm assuming she would come in as a babyface for the most part, I'm assuming, because people would be happy to see her. So I would have to say she has to come in and wrestle some of the, I don't want to just say younger, but I just want to say the younger heel wrestlers. Some of the younger heel wrestlers. Maybe Ash. I wouldn't say that she's younger, but she's yet to be like that real main event level character or whatever else. Well, she was there for a little while, but then she got injured and all that stuff happened, and now it's like we're trying to rebuild and we're trying to get her back to the podium, so to speak. And how long's that going to take? I don't know. And how long is Ariana going to be in TNA? Who knows? Like, I don't even know whether this story is really going to finish in TNA in some ways. Maybe it'll just continue in WWE in some form, in some fashion, because I kind of feel like Santino, I think they kind of want Santino in WWE, honestly. And I think he likes TNA and all of that, but like, he's been to WWE, and I think if he wants this story to continue, and to really continue, he needs to be in WWE, at least in NXT or something, because then at least you can continue the story with him and Ariana and whatever else, and Robert Stone can be the foible in between or whatever else. So I don't know, but yeah, that's where I think you would have to say, because that's why I'm saying like Ariana could be a good pick, because she's young and she has obviously future in WWE. So I think WWE might be a little bit more like, oh, okay, you can go over and put over one of our wrestlers. You can't go over and put over one of TNA's wrestlers or whatever in a match or whatever. I think that would be the best possible scenario in some ways, like the most likely scenario, because I would think, again, WWE wouldn't want to send Bayley over to actually put somebody in TNA over. Maybe that they'd let somebody from NXT get, a TNA person over eventually after like a certain amount of things or whatever else it is. Or if they're just like, oh no, now we have plans for them. Oh no, wait, no we don't. Oh yes we do. Oh no we don't. Yes we do. No we don't. No yes we do. No we don't. I don't know what we're doing, but you can't have her in either way. But that's WWE. They suddenly when they send somebody somewhere, they're like, oh, we just had this great idea with them because of what we saw in TNA, or because of what we saw in Noah, or because of what we saw over there, or whatever else it was. Suddenly, they're the hottest thing in wrestling for like 5 minutes, and they're like, oh, you've got to stop whatever you're doing. You can't. We said you could go there for weeks or months or whatever it is. No, you can't do that anymore. You've got to come back here, and you've got to do this now because we've got plans for you now. And okay, bye, whoever we were working with, bye. Oh yeah, now no, we don't have plans for you. Sorry, bye. Back to the mid card you go, or whatever. Back to losing in like a few minutes. Bye. And then it's like they leave WWE like months and whatever later.
And then they go, huh, why did they leave? Or whatever. Oh, they were never good anyway. Whatever. And then they see them doing good stuff on the indies or whatever else it is in TNA. And then they're like, hey, maybe we should sign them. It's crazy. But anyway, whatever. So yeah, that would be my most likely. I would then say maybe Ash, because I feel like she's like one of the big top heels that TNA is trying to build up. At least right now. I mean, like, Tessa Blanchard is obviously there, and it'd be kind of interesting to have something between Tessa and Bailey, the four horsewomen, or, that sort of thing, that whole shenanigans. But, like, I don't know. I don't, like, I know a lot of people probably don't want to see that because I think their opinion of Tessa is not, I suppose shaded is the right word, by, rumors and stuff from the past and whatever else it is, all that sort of stuff. So I don't think people really want to see that. I think people could have wanted to see it in some ways, but I do think that perhaps they don't want to see it now because of all the allegations and stuff against Tessa. But I think there's a story there. I think there's stuff to be had there. But the problem with like that as well, like I say, is it feels a lot bigger than just, oh, I'm here. Oh, I'm going to lose to whomever and then disappear and then never be back, basically. Because that's what would happen. That is what's going to happen if Bailey ever gets the chance to work in TNA while she's under contract with WWE. She'll be there for like a hot minute and then disappear and then be gone and never friggin' appear again until she just denies them, saying, hey, we'll give you a new contract here. And she's like, nah, I don't think you will. Bye. Because you've disrespected me for way too long. You haven't, you haven't really done anything properly with me. You don't really care about me. You just want me here so I'm not in AEW or so I'm not in TNA and, actually competing with you or actually doing stuff against you. Like that, like, and that's like with the same thing with a lot of people that both AEW and WWE have. They don't give a shit about like how, like, that's why they've hoarded so many goddamn talent. It's like, oh my god, there are so many people here and they are literally doing nothing with them. But they don't care because, again, they can't let anyone out of their deal because as soon as they let anyone out of their deal, well, they're probably going to the other company. So they keep trying to hold people into their contracts to be like, no, you can't leave. No, you stubbed your toe that one time. And this is what happened in AEW, at least, where it's like, oh, no, you were off for that one day. So now you've got a suspension, or now you've got to wait out another year to wait for your contract to be up. Oh, wait, so you've been out for a year with this contract, so you need to wait another year for that contract to be up? Bye. That's what happened with, like, Danhausen and a couple other people like that. It was like, oh my god, they've not been on TV in months, if not years. And it's like, what are you even doing? And then it's like, oh yeah, we'll let you go at the end of your contract, but your contract's extended by another like year or whatever it is because you haven't been here in a year and we haven't done anything with you for a year. So yeah, bye. And the same thing. It's very much, I think something that came out of the Steph DeLander interviews and whatnot is quite interesting, that everyone is basically on a per appearance deal. And I think that is somewhat positive, but also negative, because the thing is, you should be getting a percentage or at least a small percentage of royalties from selling your gear and stuff like that. I hope that at least you get that. Um, and everything else should be covered by TNA. You know, like they should, like, as much as possible, they should cover as many things as possible by saying, hey, we'll cover your medical because you're doing a impact sport here, and okay, you need to be in physical condition. So yeah, we'll cover any doctor bills, insurance, etc. that we can. They should be doing that. At least. But I know it's not easy because it's the American health system is absolutely stupid and ridiculous and whatever else. But still, I think that they should be like, hey, we're a company, and I know it's not cheap and all that, but still, I think like that's something that they should like cover or at least help cover. And I know like some things happen outside the company or whatever and whatnot, but you've got to maintain people and you've got to be able to rely upon people being able to perform. So saying, hey, you know, that has nothing to do with us. Well, you know what? In this sense, no, but like if you want this person to be a performer on your show, you have to look after their well-being. So it doesn't matter if it has anything to do with you. It just matters if they're, healthy. So you have to take care of them, at least to that some extent. And perhaps that is where it's like, hey, advising, hey, well, we think these injuries are too severe, whatever, you can't wrestle. But yeah, who else? Who else can Bailey McBays go up against? Danny Luna, I don't know. That makes not a whole lot of sense, honestly. Where are we? Who else is here? There's some interesting things here. Some of the Elegance brand, like, I don't know. That would be more if she's gonna do stuff in a tag team role. Daria Ray is pretty much retired though, isn't she? I don't know. Enya Black, that's kind of interesting, but again, I don't know. It just feels like, where's the story that they would have? You know what I mean? And maybe they do have one, and I'm not aware of it, but I don't know. Who else is here? It's honestly just about it, I think. Mila Moore, I mean, it's interesting in some sense if you have a story to go with. I mean, Tasha Steeles, I mean, maybe, but like, what's the story? I mean, yeah, I think Tessa has the biggest story potential. I don't think Victoria Crawford has much to do with Bailey. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, obviously Ash, but like I don't think that they would do something with her that much. Maybe I'm just thinking right here, right now, sort of thing, because obviously you could get more knockouts down the road, obviously as well. But like, I can only go off the current roster. I can't go off of, who might they sign in the next couple of months or whatever, because I'm not psychic. I don't know who they might sign. They might not sign anyone. And we know that even if they do sign, someone, it's more per appearance. So you're incentivized to get yourself not only over, but you're incentivized to not politic, but you're incentivized to make friends, and you're incentivized to sort of work within like the advice that you're given to an extent. You know what I mean? And they can only do so much for you. If you, like, this is what I say about Jake something and a couple of those other guys. It's like
they weren't doing bad, but they weren't doing that good. You know what I mean? And the company can only tell you, hey, the only, like, if you actually want to go somewhere in this company, right, these are the things that we expect that you do. You have, like, even if we say, well, we've got nothing for you, well, come back at us and say, well, I've got some stuff. How about this? How about that? Whatever. I've got some ideas. I've got this idea. I've got that idea. Like, I could work with this person. I could do this. I could do that. You need to be not passive and just say, oh, okay. You need to be like, oh, that's cool. Well, I mean, here's some ideas I've got. How about that? Or whatever. And if you guys, hey, think one of them's cool, yeah, maybe we can do something. But, otherwise I'll just be here and I'll turn up, and if you need me, hey, I'm here. Just turn up all the time. Always turn up. Even if they say, oh, no, we don't need you or whatever, just be there and be like, hey, no, I'm here. You need me suddenly for something, anything, I'm here. Like, you've got to make yourself available. You've got to go out there and say, yep, even, like, this is something that they said about Chelsea, and I didn't agree with it. You have your role, unfortunately. Like, a lot of people have your role. But you can toil in that role for a little while, and if you keep, impressing people, and if you keep saying, no, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do the work all the time, and keep turning up and keep going, yep, I'm happy to do this work. If, eventually they'll say, hey, even if they don't, you can say to people, hey, I did everything right. I did everything right. I turned up even when they didn't book me, or even when they said, hey, we haven't got anything for you or whatever. And I would pitch ideas. I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other, this and that and the other thing. These are the sorts of stories that I would like to do. This is who I would like to work with, and that sort of thing. This is my goal, and I'm out there. Hey, I'm going to start taking more interviews. I'm going to start taking more this. I'm going to start doing more meet and greets. I'm going to, pull my finger out. I'm going to be, even if I'm a quieter person, okay, well, I've got to, if I want to get it, and maybe you don't want to get anywhere. That's cool with me too. I don't care if you don't want to get anywhere. But for people who want to get somewhere in this business, you need to pull your finger out and say, okay, I need to put in the work, not just put in the work in the gym or whatever, or put the work in between the ropes or whatever else it is. I need to put the work in on the microphone. Or whatever. I need to figure out how I can, be me dialed up to 11, or be this character, that feels, realistic, or feels like it's alive, not just a thing that somebody dreamed up, one day, or maybe I dreamed it up, but like, like that's, and again, not too corporate, but maybe I can do that sort of thing or whatever that makes it feel like, hey, I'm the big ass heel, and I do think that Jake had a lot of potential, but I don't know whether he ever, got serious. That's my thing. He never got serious and actually, like, put in the hours and, did a lot of interviews or did a lot of media tours or whatever else, that sort of thing. He never really promoted the company. He was never really on Twitter or whatever else it is and all of that, trying to get the word out there and that sort of thing about the company and things like that. Like, a lot of people, myself included, did more like tweeting and retweeting and stuff like that of matches and things like that, and of upcoming shows and things like that, than what he did, So, and I know, like, sometimes it's like, oh, well, we only make one set of posts or two sets of posts and things like that. And maybe a third if the tickets are kind of low or whatever else it is. But, like, realistically, again, like look at the media tours that are going on. Like, here's Nick Nemeth and Maher Shadeh doing a media tour. Like they are pulling their finger out and saying, "Hey, no, if you want me to do a tour, boss, I'll do a tour, or whatever. I'll be there. I'll do this. I'll do that, and you can promote it, and that'll help all of us." But yeah, anyway, like, yeah, I would say Tess is the only person that has any real story. I wouldn't say Ariana has a story with Bailey, but that would be the only, like, maybe you could stretch it to saying Ash, but I don't see that there's much story there. It's just a person that I think that TNA is kind of high on right now, at least in their divisions. But yeah, I don't know if that would ever happen, just because WWE would be like, why are we sending you over to lose to some random TNA person? Maybe if you're winning, yeah, sure, whatever. But that's not like what anyone there needs. No one needs to just be like, I lost to Bailey. Great. That's hurt all my momentum. Like, you could obviously see Dani Luna's there too. She's becoming like a major star kind of thing. So, but like, again, no story. And again, I think WWE would be like, why are we sending you to lose to a random TNA person? Like, yeah. And again, like I say, WWE have really dragged their feet this year on sending like people from WWE to TNA, and it seems like they don't really care. It seems like they sent AJ Styles for the AMC debut, and that's been about it. Like, Ariana Grace is going there basically each week because WWE doesn't have that much planned for her, and she has that day free, I think, or whatever. And the things that they do have planned for her, she can sort of do in between doing stuff at TNA as well. So she's actually working, like, I think they only tape like every 2 weeks or something similar to TNA, right? So she, like, if they have it on alternating weeks, which I don't know whether they do, I don't know how they work it out or whatever. But like, yeah, if they have their things on, the next Thursday, obviously she's not doing anything because everything that she's done has already been taped, for the next week or whatever. Or it was just like the day before. So it's like, well, I'll come over there and do some more tapings or whatever else it is or whatnot. Or, hey, I've already just taped stuff there, so I don't need to go back, so I just need to wait until they message me again and say, hey, come in for this taping, da-da-da-da, whatever, and I think WWE have basically just approved that, and they don't really, I don't think they really care. They're just like, yeah, whatever, and maybe that's another thing that some people should do, is just, I'm here, or whatever. I'm going over there. Bye. You don't want to do anything with me? I'll be over there. Bye. Treat them like they treat you. If they don't have anything for you to do over there, just say, well, I will go over to TNA and do stuff over there. They say, no, you won't. You'll say, well, I'm going to ride out this contract then, and then when it's over, I'm going to go sign with TNA. So, bye. That is what I would do, dude. 100%. And maybe that's because, like, I'm somewhat of a spiteful bitch or whatever. But, like, I'm not into being disrespected. You disrespect me by saying, no, you have to do what we tell you to do. No, I don't. No, I don't. I do not have to do what you tell me to do. I can just sit on the shelf and do nothing. I can just sit back home and do nothing. I can just collect my checks and do nothing. I don't love that because I love wrestling, but hey, I could do that, and I could not sign with you. Yeah, you could, like, fire me if you want, but then I'm going to TNA, and I'm going to TNA sooner than when my contract runs out, so
You can't like yeah, it it doesn't 100% have them by the balls, but it kind of has them by the balls to be like, all right, you could go to TNA and do some stuff, and because we're not doing anything with you here. There's so many people that are in NXT, and even on the main roster, there's like, dude, what are you doing with these people? You don't know what you're doing with these people, or these people, like some of these people don't know what they're doing. They need, like, some of these people need to go back to developmental. They're not good enough to be on the main roster, and yet some of the developmental, in air quotes, people are, way better than some of these people that you've got on the main roster. Yet you're like, nah, 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 they need more time, blah, blah, blah. They don't even know where the hard cam is, or whatever, or what a hard cam is. And that takes 6 months to figure out what a hard cam is. Definitely. Or years, even. 6 years, maybe. Who knows? Uh, yeah, whatever. Like, what? Bro, it's a camera. It's a fixed camera. That's it. Where's this hard camera? Over there. Okay, cool. Great. 3 or 4 or 5 seconds to get there. See this camera over there? That is what we call the hard camera. It is a fixed camera. You look at the hard camera. You look down the middle of the hard camera and you smile. That is what you do. You are a babyface. You are a heel. You look down the hard camera and you frown and be angry. Took all of 10 seconds to explain that. That is what the hard camera is. You look at the hard camera. Basically, you really don't look at the hard camera, but you look to the direction of the hard camera. You try to find fans that are near the hard camera. This is one of the tricks that I kind of learn, is that you try to find fans near that hard camera that you can kind of see, and be like looking at the fans that are almost as close to that hard camera as what you can, because then you're actually connecting with somebody that's in the crowd somewhat, and you're looking in the right direction. And as long as you're in character or whatever, then it's going to come off a lot more natural than if you're actually like looking down the hard cam, because when you're looking down the camera, that's actually like a bad look. It actually looks like you're looking at the camera. If you're looking at somebody that's like next to the camera or behind the camera or kind of just in front of the camera or whatever else it is, you're not like focused on the camera. It's like, it's this thing that, you learn when you're doing film studies, which I did a few years back and whatnot. Not that it like, I did look at the camera a lot of the times because like I forgot and there wasn't somebody to look at or whatever else it was, or I just broke focus or whatever it was. But yeah, that is a trick that you can use, where it's like, especially if you can't see the hard camera, or if there's lights right in your face, which there usually is, you try to see some fans that are kind of near the hard camera, and then you look at them and just like kind of like looking up towards where the hard camera is. That's where the hard, like, how to look at the hard camera. Because, when you're focused on the hard camera itself, it looks more awkward. And again, like, WWE is very produced and very structured, whereas TNA, it's not so much. You know what I mean? It's a lot more freedom, and it's a lot more like not every single minute detail of the match is like scripted, or has an agent like watching over it or whatever else it is that's already been pre-planned or whatever else it is. Whereas in TNA, it's like, yes, we know your big time spots or whatever else it is, or whatever you've got planned, because if we don't know your big time spots and basically where you're going to do them, then how can we shoot them? You know what I mean? Like that. And if you're going to come off the ropes, or if you're going to come off and dive over the top, then you might hit one of the crew, so we've got to know where you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going, because otherwise you might hit one of the crew, and that's not very good. You can't be hitting the crew who's filming the thing. So besides that, like, you can do basically whatever you want as long as we know your big time spots or whatever else it is, or what you're doing. We can see, hey, like live TV, switch to camera 2, switch to camera 3, switch to the hard camera, switch to this, switch to that. Get camera 1 into the aisle position. And maybe you need like 1 or 2 more cameras, like more fixed cameras or whatever else it is. Or not fixed cameras, but semi-fixed cameras. Like you have your hard camera, and then you have your aisle camera, which is the camera that comes down the rampway or whatever else it is to the ring with the wrestler usually. And then you have like your ringside camera. Maybe you need 1 more ringside camera, but you don't want your cameras to ever be like, or your cameraman or your crew to ever basically be ever in the shot or shots that you're showing. You don't want people to be like, oh yeah, this is a TV show with cameras. You just want people to see the wrestling action and the fans and whatnot that are seeing the matches and seeing the promos and seeing whatever is going on. Seeing the brawl, seeing the moments or whatever else it is. But yeah, I could see potentially Bayley coming in and losing to Ariana. That's the one that, like I said, that I would see the most potential in, because, like, at least for now, at least while she's under contract with WWE, I don't know how she feels being in WWE. I think she is starting to feel like, hey, my career, it's starting to wane a little bit and whatnot. So, and maybe like I've done pretty much everything I can kind of do here. And obviously a lot of my efforts are a lot less appreciated here than what they had been. And they hadn't even been that appreciated then and whatnot. So, and again, there's been a lot of like back and forth between, like, Vince McMahon is here. He's accused of, effectively raping people and all this other, some women and all this other stuff. Oh, he's back. We're letting this rapist back. Great. Okay. I'm not fine with that. I don't think anyone was fine with that. Oh, he's gone again? Oh, okay, cool. That was still bad that you brought him back, though. Oh, he's back again. Okay, that's really bad. Oh, he's only here to sell off the company? Okay, but that's still really bad. Or whatever. That sort of thing. And then it's like Brock Lesnar, who was implicated. I know that's not like the same thing as being, whatever. And I know that's an active case and whatever else. But like just being a talent and being like, they brought Brock Lesnar, who's in this lawsuit, back. Yeah, that's not cool, bro. That's like, even if he's innocent and all this other stuff or whatever, that's pretty uncool to bring Lesnar back and not have let the trials and everything else kind of just wrap up and then see where the smoke lies, where the ashes lie, or whatever else it is. No, we're just gonna bring him back. What? I would be very uncool with that. Especially if I was one of the girls there, you know. Um, you know. And I feel like the girls always seem to get, even after the women's revolution that they had over there, they had a lot of disrespect come their way. Evolution 1 was really a disrespect because they were like, we're going to Saudi Arabia and the women can't come. And then they were like, well, that's bullshit, you know. And then they were like, hey, consolation prize. Here, get your own pay-per-view. And then they were like, oh, okay, that's still kind of shitty, but okay. um, so yeah, like there's been a lot of things where, and I can't remember when Evolution 2 was, but it was like a little while back. I don't even know why 100% they had it, but it was a cool thing to kind of have in some ways, I think. Um, certainly. But since the girls were able to go to Saudi Arabia finally, I don't really have seen the point in it that much. Because that was the main point of like Evolution 1 was like, hey, we're going to Saudi. The girls can't come. Oh, but we've got this other show that you guys will be on. Okay, bye. Not even to mention like the decades, literal decades that they disrespected the women's division that they had. And it's not like it's not like the evolution that was after they said that the evolution happened, you know, of their women's division, which was like crazy. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, guys, yeah, let me know what, if anything, besides like what I went through, if there's like somebody like you could say, hey, let's bring this person in, let's bring that person in. It doesn't have to be WWE main roster. Can be AEW, can be like Thunder Rosa, or I don't know what Britt Baker's doing. I think a lot of people were talking about what's her name, Scarlett, and what's his name, Karrion Kross, and that I don't know. I don't know whether Scarlett really wrestles. She kind of does, but she's more of a manager or whatever. But yeah, like anyone else, wherever they are, it doesn't really matter, that you want to see in TNA. Anything you'd like to see Bayley do if she does come to TNA. Like obviously a lot of people would love to see her like there for weeks and months and whatever else. Or even like, again, like I said, if she like has, I don't want to say the balls, but the balls effectively to say no to WWE and say, hey, you know what? I've done pretty much everything I really want to do here, for the most part. And obviously, you guys don't give a shit about me and even about this whole division or anything. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave and yeah, bye. I'm gonna treat you exactly the way you treat me, like a commodity. You know, you're no good to me unless you're gonna treat me right and treat me the way I should be treated, which is like the friggin' legend that I am. So, and I mean, like, that doesn't exclude her, like, if eventually or even if she wants to go to AEW, that doesn't exclude her from doing anything else, you know. And I don't know her contractual status or anything like that, so I don't want to put, like, that out there that I know, she's going to leave anytime soon or whatever. Maybe she does. Maybe she wants to have something to do with Sasha at some point in AEW. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't even know what Sasha's doing in AEW anymore. Like, she's there. She's had some really good matches, but it feels like she's wrestled literally everyone, and she's basically won all the belts. I think only belt she hasn't won is the AEW proper title or whatever, I think. I think she recently lose one belt there to somebody, or some amount of belts. I don't remember. Anyway, that's what I mean. Like, she's there, she's doing stuff, but it doesn't feel like there's any
competition for her over there. It feels like she's there. Maybe Tony Storm. That's about it. But AEW just like they have a few people. They have Deonna Purrazzo. They have a few other people there. I can't think of who they've got now, but they've got a fair. I think Willow Nightingale's like a fairly like well-known person there, or whatever. But yeah, they've got a few people that are there, but it's just like, what are they all doing? You know what I mean? They're just kind of there, you know. And you know, like TNA has a few people that are just kind of there. Like Danny Luna's been kind of there for a little while, you know, but now she's finally starting to feel like she's breaking out. Starts to feel like she's going to get into that upper main card division or whatever. And you've got this ready-built story with her and Jody to go off of at some point. And you've still got that a story there with Indy that you can pay off with her. And I just think it's a lot more like secure to say, yeah, we know Danny will, like, pretty much will be here and will, you know, turn up, do the tapings, you know, each month, each week, each whatever, you know, and we can rely on that. We can rely on Danny, we can rely on this person, we can rely on that person. They've shown, hey, yeah, I'm here and I'm going to do stuff, you know, and I'm going to be part of the company and, you know, whatever. Whereas, you know, I know that she's been there for a little while and whatever, since like Santino was there and since WWE had this partnership deal thing going on. But like WWE is very bad at guaranteeing anything long term to any of their partners, like AAA, TNA, whatever, all of it, all of the above. So if I was their partners, I'd be saying, yeah, whatever, WWE, like, you send us somebody, we'll figure it out, buddy. You know, like, don't call us, we won't call you. You know, type thing. Because, like, we don't care. At a certain point, we don't care. Like, not, and that's coming from a company standpoint. Like, we can ask you, we might ask you for some things here and there, but we're gonna know, hey, you know, we've got to know, hey, most of the things that we ask aren't gonna happen because, yeah, you don't care, you know. And that's evident by, you know, like, I can't remember if they said that, what was it, that NXT was going to move to another night. I can't even remember what night it was. And then TNA was going to be on Wednesdays. I was like, huh? What? You know. But that was their plan. Their plan was, let's put TNA on Wednesdays, and then they can go up against AEW, which was like, that's a dumb idea in some ways, because, like, TNA has to be on a comparable network to what AEW is on. They have to be on a comparable network to what NXT is on, you know, because those are roughly about the same. So, and that's not technically a company that you own. So you're just if you're going to do that, you're only creating more competition for yourself. Even if you say, oh, well, they're not competing with us on the same night or whatever, you know. Like, and that's why, again, I think that WWE just doesn't care. They don't really want TNA to do too well. They don't, you know, they want TNA to just do well enough to be like, you know. And I think, again, the most of the idea it was to kind of just poach the best talent and, you know, maybe try to buy the company or whatever. And that really hasn't come to fruition. So I don't know. I just think that I don't know whether they know what they're doing there sometimes. I do think they actually know what they're doing, but in some ways they don't. They're just like I think they get distracted by going, well, we could buy TNA or whatever, or we could do this or we could do that, but we've got to run Raw, we've got to run SmackDown, we've got to run NXT, we've got to run our house shows, we've got to do all this other stuff, blah blah blah. So we've got to do our, you know, all the other stuff, all the work, all the writing, you know. So there's a lot of involved in it, and I think that I understand that, but again, like you're only making more work for yourself in some ways by saying, well, we're on Monday night and we're on Friday night, and we only were really on Friday night because of the Monday Night Wars. So now why do we need Friday night? You know what I mean? And we have 2 world titles for both men and the women. We have 2 sets of world tag team titles for both the men and the women. Well, I suppose I'm not going to count the NXT ones either, because like NXT literally is its own like proper brand, and it is a developmental brand, so that's like it's fair enough for it to have like its own world title and its own mid card title and its own tag team titles for each like division, the men's division and the women's division. Whereas Raw and SmackDown having 2 sets of titles each for basically everyone, 2 sets of mid card titles, you know, for each gender, is like, by God, there's so many titles, and they all besides like the one world title that you actually like care about properly, they all mean nothing because like you've got too many things, you've got too many toys to play with, and everyone's getting a participation trophy. The more titles that you have, the less that each of those titles kinds means, unless like again it's for a very specific division that's well supported, and it actually means that saying, hey, just because you're a tag team or whatever, a female tag team or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're not as important as the men or as important as the singles. You need to look at the tag teams like the Road Warriors, like Matt and Jeff Hardys, like the Hardys, like Edge and Christian, like the Dudleys. Like you need to look at the teams that you've got now to be like, they need to be an iconic duo. It needs to be like Sasha and Bailey, even though they were kind of thrown together. At least they were 2 like fairly top stars. So when they came together, it was, and like whatnot, it was like an iconic unit and whatnot. Whereas saying like, oh, you know, just we're gonna throw 2 random people together this week, and TNA has this problem too, but saying we're just gonna throw these 2 random people together and hope it works isn't really building a cohesive team, and no one will care about that team because it's like, well, you only threw them together last week, so, and they like, if they don't have like a unified gear, unified entrance music, this and that, and whatever else. It's like, well, you know, what are we led to believe? They've got to be here for a few months. They've got to be here for a year or two or even more for us to feel like these two people, we need to connect with these two people. And why should we care that they're a team that have been thrown together? I mean, like, you can do it with some people. I think that the Alexa Bliss Charlotte tag team kind of took off. But again, you've got to have reasons for them to be together. Why are they together? Why are they in this division? Why aren't they just challenge? Like, and I know why, like, somewhat why they are, but like, why aren't they? Why is this their goal? Why do they now want to be in the tag team scene or whatever? Why do they want to do this? What is the goal? Is it to become Triple Crown champions or whatever? What's the goal? Or is it to become Grand Slam champions? Or what is the goal? Or is the goal because, hey, we like each other, or, whatever? What's the story? Not just, oh, we need more women's tag teams. That's great. But then you need to think of reasons for these teams to exist. Not just, they're here and they want gold. That's cool, but when people form a bond, look at Jason Hutch and John Schuyler. They had a great story when they started, a really great story. They didn't really have a lot of story, but they had a great story. I respect you. I respect you. We've been disrespected by everyone else here, but you're the kind of partner that I would want. You're the kind of partner that I would want. So we're going to try to prove everyone wrong that we're actually better than what they say. Everyone just looks at us like a pair of good hands. We should show them that we're better than that we can be great, or that we can be, something worthwhile, So you're out to prove yourselves, and you know each other, you like each other, you respect each other, all this stuff. So that's a great place to start. And that might not be like a lot of story, but that was actually like, kind of real. That was like what they were about. They were both guys that hadn't really gotten much opportunity. They hadn't really won anything or hadn't really done anything or whatever, and we're just kind of there. And then it's like, oh, let's play into their actual story. They're just kind of here. They've been kind of disrespected. They kind of respect each other. They know each other. Hey, I've seen you about. Let's work together. Let's prove everyone wrong that we are that damn good. Whatever. That's a great angle. Let's do it. Now you need to follow that up. They haven't. They've never followed that up. So I don't just praise them or whatever. I say, hey, that was a good start or whatever, but you can't just leave it there. You can't just say, oh, well, they're still here and they might have won once here or there or whatever. But they need, like, not everyone can be a threat. I get that. But, like, if you're going to build somebody, that's what you need to do. You need to start saying they can do this. They can do this. Especially Hotch. He's so talented. He's going to be the future of wrestling, and all of this. So, or he has a story. Let's tell his story, because he's just had a kid, and I don't want him to do the Heath, I got kids thing, but maybe that's, he kind of was floating away from Order 4 for a little while there. Even if you're not going to fully float them all away from Order 4, I said this before, you should at least have Order 4 being like, we want, and you've had glimpses of that where it's been like Jason's like kind of gone for the X Division title, then he's kind of gone for the tag team titles, or kind of, and it's like, so stop, start, stop, sort of thing. And like that's the problem. It's like again, you've slated him into this role, and same sort of thing. It's like, well, that's his role, and that's his role. So that's the role we give him. That's the role we need him in. We need other guys to get over. Well, what happens when the Hardys leave or retire or whatever else it is? Well, exactly. You need to push some of these younger guys. You need to get some of these younger guys some time to get out there, get wins, get losses. Well, they've already got losses, but get a story. Why do we need to win these belts now? How can we win these belts now? What's different from now than before? What's changed? This person went on and this story or this thing happened, and then that made them go crazy or whatever else it was, because now it's not just we want to do it. No, we've got to do it because this is do or die for us as a team or whatever, like and yeah, each division needs a story or two or three, you need two or three sort of, or even more. Like I said, your SmackDown 6, like where are your 6 or so guys that are, maybe 6 or so teams that are like, same thing. Where are these guys? Who are these guys? Where are they going? Why are they going for this thing? Look at Beer Money. Look at the Motor City Machine Guns. Look at any like really successful like tag team and say, okay, we need to make this team as big, as important as teams like that of the past. They need to be like that. Now, not every team can be like that, but they can't have to be like similar. They have to fit together. They can't just be two guys or two gals or whatever else it is put together because it's Wednesday and we need another team. Or whatever. It's Thursday and we need another team because we split another team apart or whatever because we're more interested in one of the members or both of the members being more single stars or whatever else it was. And maybe that is good to be like, hey, we see the value in this person or whatever else it is. So let's give that person a bit of a push. Let's break this team apart. Let's like see what this person could do as a solo act, as a single star, or let's see what this other person could do as a solo act, as a single star, or let's see what both of them can do as a singles act, a single star. So we need to get like whoever's coming out on top of this thing. Okay, cool. You have to then you guys have to be on opposite brands or whatever. You have to be on Raw, you have to be on SmackDown. And whoever lost has to go into a program where they now come out on top, because otherwise it's like, oh, okay, if we bring them into another angle with somebody and they just lost the last angle, then it starts becoming like, oh, okay, well, we don't have much plans for this person. They're just here to make everyone else look good and whatever. So that's not what we should do. We should make people at least think, oh, well, maybe they have plans for this person. Maybe not many, but like, and again, don't get anyone to be like feeling like they're tugging on Superman's cape. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this person, again, has been here like John Cena forever and Cena wins lol. Anyway, but like, they're a main eventer. They've been a main eventer for a long, long time, and it feels like, oh, they're just sedentary into that position. And of course, this other person's not gonna, disrupt that. Where it's like, why would we do that? Instead of saying, okay, well, especially if you've been sitting there for months and months and months and been like, oh, he loses, he loses, he loses, he loses, he loses, 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 and loses, and loses. It's like, there can be something in that, obviously, but like if you do it every time, all the time, then it's like, this is so predictable and this is like wasted people's time because people have lost investment in this person because all you've done is show that they lose and that they lose and that they lose. So if they win, they're like,
what the hell? Why did they win? Because you've spent too long being like, they lose, they lose, they lose. And so they're not going to believe that they win ever because you've shown them to be effectively a jobber. Shown them to be like a guy that can't get it done ever. So they're not going to believe when they go up against somebody like Cena or somebody like that, somebody that's a main event level person. Because again, it's like, well, you haven't spent any time building them up and making them feel like, or they haven't gone through a story after having all these losses, or they haven't done anything after that where it makes them feel like, oh, I've come back hard and strong and whatever else it is, or all those losses forged me in fire and blah, 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 blah. So now I'm ready and now I win and win and win and win. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He's winning and he's winning and he's winning. And, you're winning against the people that just beat you or whatever else it was. Now it's like you're back on track, and now it's like the momentum's coming back in your favor slowly, slowly, slowly. Not just like, oh, suddenly you're going to face John Cena or whatever out of nowhere or whatever. What? We haven't built up to this. All I've done is lose, so no one's going to believe. That doesn't matter. We don't care. Bye. That's what it feels like. It feels like if you're, again, same thing with tag teams. If you just stick people together and they just wrestle and they don't have a story as to why they're together or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Why should we care? Except, like, unless, like, you like the two people or whatever else it is. It's like, I think that whole team with Zarya and Soul was, like, cool in some ways, but it was like, why have we done this? Is this just to turn Zarya heel? Could have done that in 1,000 ways instead of just, like, putting them together as a tag team, So, but I don't know. Whatever. And I've been waffling on for way too long. But I love wrestling, guys. I'm obsessed with wrestling. You guys should know this. So yeah. Actually, before I wander away, because this is pretty much it here for this one, I want to wrap it up. Is to say that I think somebody in the comments or whatever was saying the other day about, like, what happened, man? You were saying all this stuff and whatnot before, but like the last few episodes you've kind of like toned down or whatever. Dude, that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you've got to tone it down. Sometimes I will say fuck ICE or fuck Trump or fuck any of this other stuff, this Zionist movement or any of that other stuff or whatnot. But I won't always say that. Sometimes a little bit of positivity is needed. Sometimes, whatever, a little bit of sympathy or a little bit of whatever else is needed, So just saying the same thing every single time gets repetitive, and people don't want to hear that, in some sense. So sprinkling in a little bit of, like, positivity or sympathy or whatever else sometimes is what I'll do. I'll just, be a little bit more strategic about things, because again, like, I don't want to get banned. Like, even, like, yes, of course, if I get banned or whatever else, I get banned, so I'll deal with it. But I don't want to actively go out of my way to get banned. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to, like, in some ways, yes, I'm trying to cause trouble or whatever else it is, but I'm not trying to, like, just get banned for it. You know what I mean? I'm here to do this podcast and do some stuff and whatever else it is and whatnot. But I am also a person, and I think that people are complicated and complex creatures, and you need to meet them where they're at. And people don't want to always hear, that, hey, if they happen to vote for Trump or whatever else it was, that they done fucked up or whatever. So saying, hey, let's just come together and let's work this out, and then let's get past that, and then we'll hopefully come back to a better world for us all. That's the thing. Like, because that's the main goal, and these other things like ICE and Trump and all that other stuff and Netanyahu are trying to effectively just ruin the world. So, yeah. we've got to fight against that, but people don't want to be told that they're wrong or that they're bad or whatever else and all this other stuff, even though they were or whatever. But people don't want to hear that stuff all the time. People want to be heard and want to feel like, oh, okay, we're not just like attacking people. We're here for saying no, this isn't right or whatever else it is. We're here to make a stand, and we're not here for, just pointing the finger. We're here for saying, hey, let's have a little bit more harmony or whatever else it is, not just be the finger pointers or whatever else it is. But yes, let's say, hey, this isn't right, or this isn't the way we want it to be, or whatever else it is, at least. So, and let's look to be harmonious, because at the end of the day, that is what we want. Even if we have to disagree, or we disagree on things, we should be like, hey, look, that's fine, bro. Whatever, to an extent, as long as it's like not full on Nazism or whatever else it is, or full on like racism or whatever else it is, that sort of stuff. But, beyond that, it should be like, yeah, I think that we need to have strong borders, or we need to have a strong immigration policy. Okay, sure, that's great. So people need to come into the country legally. Okay, cool, great. So let's make the process to get into the country legally easier. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Or let's make a certain cap or whatever on how many people we bring in. And let's say, okay, instead of bringing in cheap immigrant labor, so this is another way to fix the issue, is to say, well, they have to pay immigrants the same as what they would pay anyone else that's coming in to the country, or that is in the country, that would do this job. So that would mean the immigrants are no longer getting paid less to do the job, which means they've got some more money. But it also incentivizes people that normally wouldn't do those jobs to do those jobs. But it also means that, hey, it's opening up more jobs for more people that are in that country to be like, hey, that's actually, a decent job. It's not just a shit job for immigrants, basically, because they're only here to do the shit jobs that nobody else wants to do, and they get paid a whole lot less for doing it. So, just thinking through it and saying, oh yeah, it should be a lot easier for people to get a working visa, even a temporary visa, 6 months, a year, whatever else it is, or whatever, seasonal work, because a lot of the work is like picking fruit, picking vegetables, etc., whatever else it is. And a lot of that is like fairly like, oh, well, we'll pay you in some teeth, whatever, we'll pay you in some water, whatever, that's about it. Bye. So increasing labor laws that say, hey, you've got to pay these people the same wage as what you would pay anyone else. You can't get away with not paying them a proper working wage as what you would pay anyone else, means that, hey, well, more regular people that are in the country, or more citizens, will be more enticed to those jobs, because again, they pay the same as what any other job does, basically. A base salary, or a minimum minimum wage. Maybe you don't get like all the benefits or whatever else it is, but it's just, you do job, get paid. That's it. Come in, do the job, get paid. Bye. So, but yeah. Anyway, guys, that is it for this one. Hope you have enjoyed. Hope you will join me again in another one.